Hello everyone and welcome to a very special Jurassic World Dominion video by Jeremy James Prutchick. The prologue for Jurassic World Dominion was just released and it is absolutely amazing. Now some of you may have already seen this during the IMAX screening of Fast and Furious 9, and if you did, well, lucky you. But if you're like me and waited while trying to avoid spoilers at the same time, then this was definitely a treat. So today I want to talk about this prologue. This will be a two-part video because the prologue is split into two parts as well. Part 1 is of the past, while Part 2 is of the present. So for Part 1, I'm going to talk about the scenes that really stood out for me and why. So let's get started, and the best place to do that is from the very beginning. Literally, we're going way back. The opening scene of the prologue takes place around 65 million years ago, and begins with that of a sunrise. And throughout the prologue, there's various shots of beautiful landscapes and scenery. Like this shot of the valley, for instance. Now, we don't know exactly where this scene takes place, but looking at this particular shot reminds me of my trip to Alberta's Dinosaur Provincial Park last year, another beautiful place. Only here, we're seeing it from a different time, 65 million years ago. There's also this shot of a canyon and river running through it that I really like. Look at all the details here. The rock faces, the pteranodon nests, the mountains, and even the forest. This is only the first half of the prologue, and already it's filled with stunning scenery. But that's just the beginning, no pun intended. What's also special about this part of the prologue is that it introduces lots of new creatures we've never seen in the films or in the novels. Creatures that might be more familiar to dinosaur enthusiasts, but maybe not as well known to the casual viewer. And if you're one of those casual viewers, that's okay, because you may just learn something new today. First off, there was the Quetzalcoatlus. For those of you who aren't familiar with this pterosaur, you know the pteranodons from the Jurassic movies? Well, this pterosaur was much bigger. It was nearly 20 feet tall and had a 30 to 40 foot wingspan. In fact, the Quetzalcoatlus was one of the biggest flying animals to ever live. But back to the prologue, the design of the Quetzalcoatlus is very good. It's even got the feathery fur on its body. Just imagine something with a 40-foot wingspan swooping down on you from the sky. Really quickly, there's this brief shot of some ankylosauruses drinking by the water's edge. Speaking of ankylosauruses, I wonder if Bumpy will appear in Dominion. Well, that'll be a topic for another time. Let's continue. Now I want to move on to another new dinosaur featured in the prologue, the Oviraptor. Again, never seen in the film or novel canon. This little dinosaur is seen eating an egg, living up to its name of Egg Thief. But unlike the Quetzalcoatlus from before, this dinosaur's body is covered in feathers. It looks like a big chicken. And that's what makes this prologue so unique. A lot of the dinosaurs seen here have feathers, as many of them did millions of years ago. And while we're on the subject of feathered dinosaurs, this is a very important point I want to discuss, the scientific accuracy. Yes, I know this still isn't 100% scientifically accurate, but that's okay because it's not meant to be, and credit should still be given where it's due. Colin Trevorrow consulted with multiple paleontologists to sort of give us another perspective in the way we look at dinosaurs. They were not all scaly and reptilian. Some were much different. Some had feathers, and we have feathered dinosaurs now. And while they still may not be 100% accurate, it's a positive step in a different direction. Like I said, this prologue is not meant to be a scientific declaration. The whole purpose of this prologue is to help you visualize a world in which dinosaurs once lived, and I really appreciate their efforts. So now that I've got that out of the way, let's continue. Now we come to my favorite scene in the first part of the prologue. We see a Nasutoceratops emerge from the forest, and then we see a cute little baby one appear, and then another big one. Maybe its parent or an older sibling. But as the scene gradually pans to the right, we see that there are more and more and more Nasutoceratops. There's dozens of them, and they're just enjoying life in their natural habitat. This massive herd moves along as one unit, one family, like a herd of elephants, and it seems to go on forever. So why is this my favorite scene? Well, close your eyes for a minute, and try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period, standing in the very same place seen here. This is the kind of place that you read about in dinosaur books or at the museum. And this one place is just one very small part of planet Earth. And what you see is just one group of one particular species of dinosaur, and they're everywhere. Life is everywhere. What we're looking at is but a mere fraction of the life on Earth 65 million years ago. Just imagine. You can open your eyes now. But if you'd rather not and stay with the dinosaurs, I totally understand. Next we see yet another new dinosaur, the Iguanodon with its signature spikes on its feet. But it quickly turns aside to get away as we're introduced to one of the biggest carnivorous dinosaurs that ever lived, the mighty Giganotosaurus. I really like the design of the Giganotosaurus here. It's got its signature skull shape, and it's got spikes going along its body. It looks really cool. And you know what else is cool? A T-Rex shows up and stares down the Giganotosaurus. Now, if you look closely at this particular T-Rex, it's much different than the ones we've seen before. It has very small feathers, almost like hair, going along its head and body, and its posture is different too. More specifically, its arms. In the other movies, the T-Rex's arms were curled downward, but here they're turned aside. Now, this is the scene that a lot of people have been talking about even before this was released on YouTube, for all kinds of reasons, whether it be scientific accuracy or the end result, but probably the biggest reason is that these two dinosaurs fight each other. In this scene, the Giganotosaurus is more or less portrayed as a rival to the famous T-Rex that we've seen star in every other Jurassic movie up until now. So here we get to see what it's capable of. During the fight, the T-Rex loses its footing, creating an opening. The Giganotosaurus takes its chance and bites down hard on the T-Rex's neck and throws its dead body aside. And there's another cool thing about the Giganotosaurus. When it growls, it makes sounds similar to that of the Indominus Rex because, fun fact, the Indominus Rex has Giganotosaurus DNA. After the Giganotosaurus walks away from its kill, we then see a tiny little mosquito land on the dead T-Rex. It pauses for a moment to drink its blood, and then flies away. While this part of the prologue doesn't contain any major plot points, it does sort of give a backstory as to where Hammond got his dinosaur DNA from, and how it came to be. Next time you look at Amber, think about this. Where did the mosquito get that blood? This scene sort of teases one of countless possibilities. And that's the end of the first part of the prologue for Jurassic World Dominion. In my opinion, the biggest things I took from this prologue were the visuals. I'm a visual person, and to me, this is a visually appealing scene. You have gorgeous scenery, new animals, the addition of more details into these animals, like the feathers, but most of all, I just loved seeing a world where dinosaurs are free and everywhere. A world when dinosaurs ruled the earth. This is simply beautiful. And with that said, this concludes part 1 of my discussion of the Jurassic World Dominion prologue. Stay tuned for part 2 where I discuss the second part of the prologue. Until then, what did you think of the first part of the prologue? Talk about it in the comments and have some fun. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more Jurassic content, you can find lots more of it on my channel. And if you want to keep seeing more Jurassic content, subscribe. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.